Phone reps of Reddit. What is the best thing anyone said while they thought they were on hold? Guy and his wife. Wife asks him if he has a pen. Guy says, in the most excitable voice I've ever heard from a full-grown man, "No, but I have a crayon and a wall. Ha 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 ha. I'm glad to hear Harold is doing well after he grew up." Where I work, we use a computer-based phone system called Bria. For some reason, placing people on hold is fricked up, so instead of hold we just mute our end of the line and we can hear the customer. I muted one guy once and he starts yelling, "AW crap, we got them cookies? Check the expiration date on them cookies. AW crap, they good? Yo, bring them cookies right her son." I was dying from laughing, doubled over my desk. My co-workers thought I was nuts. I had an older lady totally forget that I was on the phone at all while I was remotely resetting her cable box. I used to just tell them I'm going to step away from my desk for a drink of water while the box resets, since it takes about 5 minutes to do anything, even though sometimes I'd just sit there on mute until I got a response back from the cable box again. She started having a conversation with her husband and asked what he wanted on his sandwich. She took the phone with her into the kitchen, started making a sandwich, and left the phone in the kitchen, I guess. I tried calling out her name, but she must not have had me on speakerphone, so she just started arguing with her husband, saying, "You told me you wanted mayonnaise on your sandwich." They argued for a bit, and she made him a new sandwich without mayonnaise. This seemed to satisfy him, and the arguing stopped, but she never came back to the phone. I tried calling her back, but I guess it was an older phone that didn't automatically disconnect the line when one party hangs up, so I got a busy signal. Or, a darker possibility, she put mayonnaise on his sandwich one too many times. I was working as a tier 2 and often took escalations. Mad customers. When I approached and asked the rep what was going on, he simply said she's an old bee. His headset was not muted and I froze when she says I heard that. While taking an escalation, the customer yelled into the phone, probably as loud as he could as he was very angry. "I'm a freaking heart patient. Do as you're told." I had to mute the call because I was laughing so hard. I had an older gentleman say I'm on the phone with a nice young gentleman. He is going to save me money on my life insurance. Presumably this was to his wife. I was trying to upgrade his TV and internet package, not his life insurance. So when I came back to the phone, I'll let him know this was not life insurance. He would just be getting a landline from us instead of his old company. He didn't like that so much as the insurance thing. Old people are either the most lovely people ever or the worst people ever. I put a policeman on hold once. He knew he was on hold, but listening back to the call afterwards, he was discussing the merits of the vending machine and how wagon wheels, a biscuit covered in marshmallow and chocolate, had got smaller over the years and so had curly whirlies, all while they were booking in a guy they had just arrested. I think the chap I was listening to made someone go to the vending machine to get a wagon wheel to measure it, not that he would have had one from the 1980s to compare it to. The wagon wheel thing is true. My aunt used to be able to fit an entire one in her mouth as her party piece. Now she complains it's not even a challenge. Sorry, the situation isn't exactly as the title asks, but reading these stories reminded me of a funny thing that would happen every month or so at this massive warehouse I worked in. The warehouse was ridiculous. Over 500,000 square feet of space, 50 plus guys picking orders, lots of traffic. There were phones at the ends of the aisles, primarily for calling in injuries or paging maintenance guys, etc. The phones could be used to page the entire building, and it was impossible to know which phone was making the announcement. Every now and then, you'd hear the beep of the PA coming on, then a minute or so of P being played off someone's iPod. I remember another time when some of the donghead CEOs were doing a walkthrough, someone put on the Imperial March. The scene you described sounds freaking hilarious. I imagine a bunch of guys just running around like Monsters Inc. style, doing various tasks that look like nothing if you followed them long enough and constantly trying to one-up the best thing you can, speakerphone in, since anonymity is on your side. Not even on mute. The first thing the customer said after my intro was, "Want to hear a dirty joke? How do you find the blind guy at a nude beach? It's not hard, sir. How can I help you with your office supply question?" I have never heard that joke. I will use that one sometime, especially when I have office supply questions. Working tech support for a major multinational investment bank. There was an email outage the real techs were working on. The caller, who was British, for the record, was very polite when I explained the situation and thought he'd hung up before turning to his co-worker and saying, "Freaking C, don't know what's wrong." Who was British, for the record. This is an important piece of information. In Great Britain, the phrase freaking C is a term of endearment. I work for a company that registers domain names. Normally changing information on the account is pretty simple with account passwords and such, but if you claim that you forgot all your crap, we resort to scanned photo IDs and paper bills. A guy calls in telling us that he had faxed info for a rather valuable domain name. I put him on mute as to get my super to check the fax machine so I can continue to process him, and he starts telling someone else in the room his boss will pay for firing him. I tell the guy we need to call him back and contact the company in question, talk to the boss and sort everything out. Makes me wonder what domain that was. Not entirely related, but I work for AT&T. A woman called in asking why is my bill $3,000. I went into her bill and she had $2,800 in BBWP subscriptions on her husband's line. I explained it to her and which line it was on, and proceeded to listen to her marriage fail. I don't have anything against P, but I do have something against blowing almost $3K on it. I'm a little late to the fun and this isn't quite what was asked, but I once dropped the F-bomb on a call thinking it was muted when I worked internet tech support. I couldn't for the life of me figure out the issue. Don't actually remember what it was, just remember it was one of those this makes no sense moments. I muted the guy for a second and out loud said what the frick. Turns out I hadn't actually muted him. His response was tell me about it, haha. I work for Nintendo tech support. Put a bro dude on hold while looking up his serial no for his Wii. He nonchalantly says to his GF, "This Wii remote is rigged, babe, let me play tennis with your over is great call." The sad part is that I'm sure there is a program specifically designed to control the vibration function on the Wii remote. Just hook it up via Bluetooth and buzz away. Not a phone rep, but a customer guilty of this. I was on the phone with my cable company and was sure the voice I was talking to was pre-recorded. Only had yes/no answers to give up until that point. The voice said please hold while I access your account or something like that. Since I was on hold with a potential robot, I was laughing with my roommate about how weird this pre-recording's voice sounded. Eventually he was all sorry. I'm a real person and I was mortified. I told him I was sorry, I thought he was a weird sounding robot. He said it was okay. He sometimes pretends to be a robot because his job is boring and he's tired and it's the end of the day. I complimented him on his robot skills. I was so thankful he had a sense of humor, and I felt awful for some time after that. Plot twist. He was a robot but didn't know it. Sometimes if I'm on a call with a machine I'll ask if androids dream of electric sheep. Great book. Read it. I pray that one day one of them says yes. I work for a pharmacy company that supplies medication to nursing homes. I had a nurse explicitly describe having sexual relations with another nurse, presumably both female from the names, in their van for the nursing facility. They presumed I did not speak Tagalog. They were wrong. Please tell me you said goodbye in Tagalog. When I was still in college, I worked for my school calling alumni for donations. I had a guy get really angry at me one time and asked to talk to my supervisor, so I put him on hold shortly and then transferred it to my manager's office, where he put it on speaker for us. We took him off hold to find him in the middle of a terrible, anti-Semitic rant that went on for at least 10 minutes about how the Jews had taken over the school and were using it as a front to fundraise for the Israeli lobby in Congress, and how we were all being brainwashed into being Zionists. Dang, that's an elaborate conspiracy theory. I always act like I don't think they can hear me. Then I say flattering things about the person I'm speaking to and how I am sure they can help me after dealing with the last several idiots. Half the time I'm sure they can't hear me, but the other half, I get much better service when the person comes back. I often hear the kids of customers that work from home getting into all sorts of mischief. It's usually the lack of the child being present that makes the customer worried, and they go on to discover the huge mess the kid made in the other room. Agreed, if it's quiet something's up. Worked phones for low-level tech support at my university while in college, mostly helping people set up emails and making tickets for faculty staff. I loved the mute button more than the hold button, so I heard a lot of interesting conversations. For those who don't know, the hold button played music, the mute button just muted my mic, and I could still hear everything on the other end. The faculty and staff would be pretty boring. They were still in an office, mostly lunch plans and conversations that sounded like office gossip that I wasn't interested in. But the students at home, especially new students setting up their accounts for the first time, a lot of times with their parents, random arguments about whether or not they were doing the right thing by calling. You'd be surprised how many people get anxious about calling for help. The two that stick out the most: the son calls to get help setting up his account before he comes for orientation. Mom and son argue while they are on hold about whether or not a degree in video game design is a useful path and how he is wasting his life and money. That was the awkwardest conversation I've ever interrupted. The girl who was in my statistics class and sat 2 rows in front of me who, when on hold, decided to bust out her Elvis impersonation. Not once, not twice, but all 3 times that I put her on hold. I was trying to come up with an excuse to put her on hold a 4th time, just for my own amusement, but I couldn't think on my feet fast enough. Please tell me you ended the call with an Elvis like "thank you very much." I work stock and customer service for tech support. Now, this wasn't a customer, but we had a district call with all of our employees on it, and one of the guys forgot to put his phone on mute and started cussing about his wife, calling her a BAMDW, and said, "Who the frick she think I am? Obama? I can't support her lazy ass not working." And then he went on to talk crap about our DM, who was on the call, at which point she piped in, "Do you guys know your phone's not muted?" Guy went silent and we never heard from him again. At another point in my career, I put a gentleman on hold while I checked to see if we had a battery for his phone we could send him. His buddy could be heard in the background. All they both talked about was my accent and what I would sound like with his dong in my mouth. I handed the phone off to a male employee at that point. I was done. Nope. You are. So the male employee got on the line with his deep Charo Mexicano accent and told the guy we had one and he'd have to pay by CC. Guy asked what happened to me. He said I didn't like the prospect of foreign objects in my mouth. Dude hung up and never called again. Absent-mindedly humming, then singing the Oscar Mayer song. Customer must have been on a headset. Had the guy on mute. Heard a door open, creak. Heard his footsteps begin to echo more than they had before the door opened. I began to think no, this couldn't be. Heard him grunt. Then heard the stream into the toilet. Then the flush. At that point, I put my headset on my desk and my manager couldn't get me to stop laughing. Had to have another tech finish the call with him because I knew that I wouldn't be able to do anything but laugh. Till being on mute doesn't matter. Also, I'm definitely guilty of this one on multiple occasions. I've taken a dump while on mute before. I had no idea you could hear me. Sorry. Late to party, but best story I was ever part of. Working tech support. Neighbor rep has long call with bitchy customer. Over 2 hours. Rep puts customer on mute. Misses mute button. And under his breath sighs, "Oh, just frick off." Customer hears "excuse me" without missing a beat. The rep says, "Did you hear that too, sir? I think our lines have been crossed. Please hold while I reconnect us." One of the best saves I've ever witnessed.
Oh, hey, don't mind me. I'm just working hard on the next Dude Man video. Hey, by the way, if you want more awesome content like this, you should check that channel out. What you should. You should want to watch more awesome content. Then head on over to Dude Man. I'm Lunar Steve and I'm the host over there. Go give it a look. I hope you like what you see.